Well, hey guys, my name is Joshua. As that awesome intro was, I lead product at a company called Ankr, and this is Devesh. Want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, guys, for having us here. I am Devesh Gupta, more commonly known here as Fury Dave, and I'm from Millennium Club DAO, and we do what we do because we love what we do.
Yeah, awesome. We're going to be talking about decentralizing infrastructure specifically, and really what does that even mean? I think there's been some other presentations today around that. So on the screen here, you can see that we're going to be talking about nodes today, and there's really two types of nodes that are more or less present in every blockchain, including Fantom. First is full nodes, and the second is validators. And so if you don't know what a node is, those are the two types. The validators really serve the network, right? They're building consensus on the networks, and the full nodes are what serve the developers and the projects. So, Devesh, I know that you've been running many nodes. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started running nodes? Because your background is law.
Yeah.
Now you're running nodes.
Yeah, so this just started with a hobby or my passion for machinery, and that's how I entered the crypto space back in 2013. Normally, the guys who are into hardware start with mining, so that's how my journey started. And so I suffered the proof of work mechanism for 4 years before finding out I did not need to do that.
Yeah.
So once I learned about Fantom, the technology they were building, the proof of stake mechanism, how it works, it was really mind-altering the amount of energy, power we had previously wasted just to validate a few transactions, and Fantom can do maybe 1000x that with an ounce of a power as compared to that. So that's when I first learned about validator nodes and what they did and how they operated. But the technicals were still very far away from me, as you can imagine. Having no technical background, I just had to rely on the community, on the folks from Fantom team, Fantom previous node operators. They helped me out. They showed me the documentation. Like, you can believe me, when I started running nodes, I had to Google what sudo was. So if that stage can reach to a place where I'm running 2 validators for a prestigious network like Fantom, anyone amongst you can do that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you don't develop anything. Like, you're not an engineer. Your background is law, but yet you learn to run nodes and validators yourself.
Exactly. With zero, I never coded in my life. I can't code. I can read code a bit, but execute code maybe.
Yeah.
Copy paste code, but not write code.
Yeah. That's really amazing. So just using what was available in the community, on the Discords, reaching out to the Fantom community, you basically taught yourself how to run nodes. So what was the first node that you ran after you got out of the mining business?
So, I guess it's not a surprise. It was Fantom.
Love it. And can you tell us a little bit about your story? Because I know you founded Millennium Club DAO, and now you guys are running nodes on Fantom and many other networks. But what's been extraordinary is you're teaching people now, right, to run nodes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it all started on one random distant Discord server where I ran into one of my close friends now who's running validators under the name of Pathrock Network. So he's the guy who actually helped me out in that first day where I was like, okay, I don't want to rent this VPS for 10 euros. Like, what am I going to do with it? So I had no Ubuntu background. So he's the one who helped me, who pushed me, who taught me all of that, the first basic steps. And from there it started. I gained more knowledge, more help, and then more nodes were born. So once I experienced that, once I saw that someone could open that door for me, that's what I wanted to do for everyone around me. And
yeah. And so, but running the nodes, unlike mining, like just running a node isn't necessarily profitable, right? But I know you've had a lot of doors open because you've run nodes. So can you tell us a little bit about some of those doors that have been opened for you?
of course, like that door, I wouldn't be here. So
Right.
that's a very small example to say, but what really happened when I started validating for these networks, I started gaining more interaction with the communities on these networks. So
Yeah.
I was there validating for Polygon, Avalanche, and like I can't really keep on the list, it's a long one. And when I interacted with these communities, I realized what these folks were building and what's important and what's not. So that's how I chose the chains on which I wish to validate for. It's the
Right.
community and technology which I followed in that order.
Right, right. That's really amazing. And then you were telling me earlier that what, a 14-year-old just reached out and wanted to run a node?
Yeah, the lights are too strong. He may be just sitting outside somewhere there. So yeah, he was really interested in running nodes, and he was really interested with how this everything worked. So we brought him on board on Millennium Club. He's on the Discord right now. And there's an upcoming incentivized testnet. We are sharing guides, telling him where to get what hardware. And I'm sure he'll be a validator within 6 months.
Love it, love it, love it. And now, validators are it's a earning opportunity now. What are some, just for those community knows, as a validator, how can you as a validator earn from the chain itself?
So the easiest and confirmed earnings which you will get is in your proof of stake earnings. So for example, if a BTC miner gets hardware and starts mining BTC, that's the output they get. In POS chains, when you run a validator node, you have to have some collateral as security, so as ensure that you don't misbehave in the network, so to speak. So once you provide that collateral as security, you earn a fixed APY on that collateral, along with the most important part, the transaction fee. Currently, the Fantom network is being boosted by the initial set of emissions which the team has planned. However, what people fail to realize is that the transaction fee is rising daily.
Yes.
As a validator, I'm very happy with the more use Fantom network sees because that's where I earn from. In the long run, the emissions will die out, but with the higher transaction count, I'm pretty sure we can beat the emissions we have right now.
Yeah, so basically, like whenever you transfer an asset on the blockchain, you are essentially paying a gas fee. And that in proof of stake, that gas fee goes to validators, right?
Exactly.
And as, one of the, I think Ethereum's gas fee at this very moment is like $100 per transaction.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
I paid
it could be higher.
$238.
It could be, yes. So a lot of the new layer ones are working on lowering the gas fees, which ultimately means the validators earn less money. But there's a trade-off because it makes the chain more popular. So there's a higher volume of transactions to kind of fund the validators. So what have you seen with like your validators so far?
I think the biggest example I can provide you is last week. So Fantom had a days when the transaction count on Fantom chain has exceeded Ethereum on that day. So that is when Fantom has barely scratched the surface. There's so much being built, and we're like Andre has made a few quotes. I won't quote them again, but we're expecting a lot more load. Like this is the light days. With the new updates the team is bringing out, with the new quick sync, with the lower gas fee which we're about to see soon, the higher transaction count from games like Rarity will just increase tenfold, 100-fold. We don't know, we can't imagine. When Rarity was released, we did not imagine the amount of users who would flock just to play that game.
Right.
Gaming NFTs is the future, so you can imagine if a game like Rocket League or any popular Steam game, the amount of users they have. Imagine if they can earn in that game while playing it as well.
Right. So it's really an amazing opportunity that like anyone, like maybe someone's a retail investor and they're like, how do I get more involved? They could literally come to Millennium DAO, learn how to run a validator or a full node, and potentially like have some doors open in the community if they get involved, or even earn through the
Completely. So the hidden income stream, which people don't really realize in the short term, is from delegations. So if I am active in the Fantom ecosystem for this long, I started Validator 37 back in July 2020. So people know that, okay, Fury's here and he won't run away, he won't close the node down, and he'll continue acting in the ecosystem. So if folks like anyone has, say, lesser amount of Fantom than the collateral and they still want to stake, they have to delegate to an existing node.
Right.
So they'll only delegate to nodes or people they trust. So if you are active in the community, in the ecosystem, if you provide support to other projects, if you help people, they will help you back. And once you get those delegations, you earn a fee. So basically, since you're the one who's running the server, who's providing the service, and the user is only earning the staking APY without any cost, like zero cost. Okay, like a transaction cost of 1 cent. So 1 cent is the cost. So that's all the cost they have, and they still earn the same APY as everyone else, minus the fee, the validator charges.
So right now on Fantom, you need 1 million FTM as a self-stake, right, to get validated.
It's reduced to 500K, but should be effective within 1 or 2 weeks maximum.
Right. So not everyone has that, but what Devesh is saying is, you can delegate to a validator if you don't have that and continue to earn.
Exactly. So there is a big trend and shift that people are seeing with the advent of DeFi culture. People feel like, okay, this DeFi platform can earn me a 50% APY on my Fantom. Why would I stake? What people fail to understand, DeFi platforms come with a very large inherent risk. You have to trust those contracts, trust those developers with your funds. So like just yesterday, 6 p.m., one of the major DeFi protocols was hijacked by an exploit. So, funds are not always as safe as you want them to be. Now comes the staking part. If you're staking in a blockchain, that has the highest degree of safety than any other mechanism out there. If I'm earning 12% APY on my Fantom, I know I'm earning 12% and I'll get back my principal and the 12% at the end of the day. If I'm staking it on a DeFi platform, I can't sleep. I will just be, okay, my phone, my Discord, it's...
What's fascinating about this, and we say this at Ankr a lot, is that in Web3, it's effectively like money embedded in the infrastructure, and that's like a really, really interesting concept, right?
It's quite new still because people, when they experiment, they prefer cloud VPSs and cloud AWS type structures because they don't have to plan much for them. They can just start it up and be like, okay, now we need more resources, click of a button, and it happens. But I don't think that's sustainable in the longer run. AWS, for example, it's an amazing service. It's the best of the best. However, it's not really oriented at the blockchain industry.
That's right. And that brings up kind of like the heart of this panel is really on decentralizing infrastructure. So I saw recently that almost 40% of all blockchain nodes are ran in the public cloud. So it doesn't have a majority, but it's definitely growing, probably because it's easy to use, somewhat of a one-click deployment. What kind of services have you guys? You guys are deploying nodes on validators. You're deploying full nodes as well. So I think you guys use bare metal a lot, right?
Only.
Yes, that's great.
I don't like cloud servers, I'm sorry. I like to know my machine is mine. So what essentially a cloud server is, of course not assume, I'm sure Josh has like the heaviest computers out there. So assume he has a super beefy bare metal server. Now he wants to rent it out. No single user would always want that heavy a server. So what AWS or similar providers do, they divide a larger machine into smaller virtual machines per se and give complete access to that virtual part. Now, the worst case, what can happen in such a scenario, the primary machine which is hosting multiple VPSs, it fails or restarts due to some unknown reason. That happens not one, not two, but all the nodes on that machine die immediately.
Yes.
So that's the biggest concern for cloud services. Whereas for
we've really discovered, like at Ankr, we don't run any nodes in the public cloud. We only use bare metal, and now we're even getting into the co-location business as well, going to the same data centers that Netflix and AWS themselves use and hosting nodes there. And I think that's really a good thing. It creates that kind of self-sovereignty in the ecosystem. If you're running the servers, and basically you control like the entire server at that point.
Exactly. So I think Ankr is one of the only entities in the position where they can make such impact or such change. So how are you guys planning the bare metal scene?
Yeah, so we started kind of wanting to build a cloud, and then in doing that, we created all these partnerships with data center providers, and those effectively opened up a lot of doors for us. So we have a little bit more economies of scale now, where we can do partnerships and get better pricing and whatnot from data center providers. And one of the things that kind of, as we did that, we realized effectively that we're in this interesting kind of like existential crisis, because as a node provider, we're effectively providing nodes as a service to the community. And essentially, if you think about like a blockchain, it's a decentralized system by default, right? But a node is only so powerful. A single node is only so powerful. And so what we've seen over the last as crypto, as the market cap has gone up, as adoption has happened, is projects really need multiple nodes to effectively scale. And so as a service provider, that's great, like more business for us, but effectively kind of centralizes us. So I have a slide here to kind of show this to the community here. So if you think about like what we do at Ankr is we have a load balancer, and we balance load between all these nodes that we effectively run. And I think the issue here is that we take that decentralized system, right, and we begin to start centralizing it. So if you think about all the node providers out there that are effectively doing this, and so one of the things that we've been working on for a while is pulling decentralization into ourselves. And so we had just announced Ankr Protocol today, which effectively does this, but you guys have been running nodes for us. So, it's really interesting how that is. So what are your thoughts on like kind of this balance between decentralization and centralization in nodes?
So I think what the majority fail to understand when they try to dissect this topic is decentralization is not an end goal. It's just a process.
Yes.
You can't just say, okay, we have 30 nodes, this is decentralized, and 29 is centralized. It's not a hard line that, okay, this is decentralization and centralization. So as you may know, Fantom network started with a lesser number of nodes like any other network. And slowly the Satoshi coefficient, as they call it, or the number of nodes needed to stop a single network, keeps on increasing as more nodes come online. The first collateral requirement for a Fantom validator was 3.175 million Fantom, 0.1% of the maximum supply. So you can imagine at current prices, that's like $12 million. Yeah. So I can't expect someone there to just, okay, this looks nice, I'll just whip out my bank account, 12 million, and So it became difficult. So that's when the collateral kept decreasing. And Andre quoted a couple of days ago that initially the security was needed, so it was more centralized, and as the number of nodes kept on increasing, the level of decentralization started increasing. At one point, we're expecting 100, 500, and 1,000 nodes, so you can imagine the decentralization would just keep on increasing.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we can do is if like companies like Ankr, if we, through the Ankr DAO and the protocol, we start getting the community to run nodes, it helps with the decentralizing effort. But yet we have more work to do long term because effectively to really bring full decentralization, it's going to be a multi-year process, I think, as we look at like how do we build a decentralized load balancer, right? Like that's a big question that we're working on right now and trying to figure out, right? So ultimately, if we fully decentralize the node as a service, right, you have a blockchain that's highly scalable, high performance, but also can't really be shut down by anyone, right? Because
Fantom is already there, I would say.
Yeah.
Try shutting it down. My node's not going down.
Yeah. Right. So we've been on this journey a while, and we've been getting closer and closer and closer to it. So it's really interesting in that sense. Yeah. So what's next for Millennium Club DAO?
Very honestly, the path for the DAO has rarely been chosen by the DAO.
Yeah.
The path is what the opportunities brought us. So we just try to latch on to the good networks while they're being built. Most of our members are testnet operators in all of the chains where they find the potential, where they feel there is a future, where they feel that something new is being made. So once you are in the testnet, you always get a chance to join the validating set at Genesis. So I think that's the smartest move anyone in the room can make at this point. Because then you have full support from team, from community. You may have the luck of finding delegations at beginning. So it becomes easier to join a network at Genesis and harder as time passes.
Sure.
So like 1.5 years ago, 3.175 million Fantom was like $50,000. Yes. So you could have run a node for $50,000. And right now, yeah, even a 100K Fantom node would probably set you back by like 350K.
Are you saying validators?
Sorry?
Or just a full node? You're saying validators, right?
Validators, of course. For full nodes, you don't need collateral.
Yes. So let's talk about this, because when we're talking about this system here, like Ankr is working on decentralizing validators. We already did it with our ETH2 solution. We haven't done it for Fantom yet. But if you don't have that like amount of money to stake as a validator, really like so far there's not been a lot of incentives to run a full node, right? We talked about at the beginning, like full nodes are really what projects and developers need to use. But yet Millennium Club you guys have been incentivized by some of the foundations to run full nodes. And now with Ankr Protocol, you'll be incentivized as well. So how has that process been?
I remember the first full node I ran. It was for Fantom, no surprise.
Right.
So when I ran the first full node, there was a project who needed some help. They wanted to access a node and they couldn't find something reliable. So I'm like, okay, I'm a validator. I feel it's my duty to help the network. So I spun one up and gave it to the guy.
Yep.
A week later, I am like, okay, he needs 3 more and now he's asking if he can pay me for them. I'm like, that was the day I realized RPC servers can get paid. Like he mentioned that they're rarely incentivized. They're not. Not rarely, they are not incentivized. If you run a full node, you run it because you want to. No one will pay you for it. Till now.
Yep. And that's we have a slide here. Today we announced Ankr Protocol here for 5 chains. And so with Ankr Protocol, we will be incentivizing node operators, right, to join the network. I think we have, you guys have been running nodes for us, and then throughout kind of all, as well as our validators, we have over 200 node providers now. So it's really amazing to see that. And effectively, the barrier to entry on full nodes is like so much less than validators because you just need the server.
Exactly. Zero collateral. You just need a full copy of the blockchain, which is staying synced, and you can access it for past data, current data, or if you're building a DeFi project, you have charts. Like I think the easiest way to differentiate between a validator node and a full node is Fantom is a blockchain. It works in a single factor that blocks are created and transactions are stored in those blocks. So validators are those nodes which create those blocks. Full nodes are those nodes which store those blocks only. So to create, you need to store and do extra functions. But for a full node, you just have a full copy of the blockchain, which is completely synced all the time. So if you're running a project, you need to access or use the blockchain, you need a full node. If you want to actually POS or stake or actually make those blocks, then you need a validator. So one is just growing the chain, one is using the chain. That's the biggest difference.
That's right. That's a great analogy, and I can tell you've like trained a lot of people on like these nodes, right? Because you've simplified the language so much. But like in doing that, like let's talk about some of the challenges that you run into running a full node, because all the time, I think anyone that runs a full node will know we have something called block height, right? And block height means that your node is at the current block or close to it. I think maybe 1 or 2 behind. So in your experience, can you talk a little bit about the challenges of keeping the node at block height? Like what does someone have to do to make sure the node stays at block height?
So I think the biggest issue people face is when they don't try to understand or they miss some of the requirements or the hardware needed to run a node.
Yeah.
For example, many of the faster chains like Fantom would need NVMe hard disks, which have really high input-output per second speeds. So folks just use a normal SATA disk or a regular disk, and when they run the blockchain, it'll synchronize fine. Like it'll go fine, okay, it's moving ahead, but once it's close to the block height, to the latest block, it won't get there. The last few blocks will always be behind, and it will never be able to keep up with the speed of the blockchain. Because let's face it, technology has been changing so fast. We were using parallel ADA hard disks at one point. Then came SATA, then came SSD, NVMe.
They're too slow. I can tell you from our experience at Ankr is that I think let's call this out. Like one interesting is like most blockchains, including Ethereum, were really built for like the consumer, prosumer hardware on the servers. But as we've needed faster and faster and higher TPS on chains, the requirements on the server side have gone up a lot. And they're growing every day.
Truly.
Right. And so you called out, I think that was a great call out, that NVMe storage is really necessary. And we agree with that at Ankr. Like almost all of our servers now are NVMe. And that's something that you can't even get that performance really in the public cloud. Like
you can't.
Right.
Whenever you rent a VPS, they may mention NVMe.
VPS stands for Virtual Private Server.
Yes, the cloud server. Whenever we rent a cloud server, they may mention NVMe, but they don't mention the speed. So NVMe is just a technology. It can be it's like saying we have a fast car. Right. How fast? They didn't really write it. So.
Right. Yeah, and so effectively, this kind of creates an issue because full nodes are getting more expensive to run because the servers are the requirements are greater, right? And up until now, you're not really incentivized to do that, so it's like diminishing returns. So I think Anchor protocol can help out with this. I know other projects are working on solutions like this as well. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see kind of where this goes, and if we can get more people, running full nodes. In addition to block height, right? So keeping at block height, you mentioned how disk speed is really important, right? What are some other challenges? Because the chains themselves often have updates.
Of course. So, as you know, there was a recent Get update a couple of weeks ago. So that was a serious security issue.
Right.
So if you had not updated your node would have crashed. That was not true just for Ethereum. That was also true for BSC and a couple of other chains.
Yes.
So, they're all rushed to the parent chain when an update is go. Everyone is running around trying to fix it. And the next release is really important in those cases.
Right.
So when that update was launched, I think the worst hit was Binance chain because their servers were the most late to update. So
yeah, we had our engineers up all night that night, updating all of our nodes.
Lots of Millennium Club members were not sleeping either.
Yeah, when those critical updates happen, you have to be very fast. And I think that's a lot of the value of what a DAO like Millennium Club can offer is a community where people are like, oh, crap, I have to update my node right now. What do I do? And you can help.
Exactly. So that's what we did. When that update launched, we had multiple announcements tagging everyone, guys.
Right.
We need this right now. You have a deadline, and some folks still missed, but majority did it.
Yeah. So effectively, what happens if you don't update your node on time?
It just stops. It just crashes, and then if you're unlucky, you will have to resync from a long checkpoint back.
You get out of block height.
Yeah.
It's a slow process. Anyone that runs full nodes that you guys know that if you get out of block height too far, it can take a really long time to fully synchronize to the peer-to-peer system, right?
And this problem is actually accentuating further. The issue is when more users are using a blockchain, the TPS increases. The size of the database for that blockchain also increases. So imagine if you miss the first month of syncing. That's when the chain launched. It's barely any transactions, completely empty. So if you start syncing from scratch, it'll initially sync super fast, but then it'll keep on going slow and slow till you reach the end when Rarity gets released and nodes get, oh shit, so many transactions.
Right. So I think this is so there's a concept called a snapshot, right? So some chains offer snapshots to the community. Maybe they're taken, and for those of you that don't know what a snapshot is, it's really an entire copy of the blockchain that maybe it's like a zip file or something like that, and you can download it and update it. But as this becomes a bigger issue, we might need to look at making daily snapshots available to the community. So what have you seen? You guys are working on, you're running nodes for Fantom, for Polygon, for Avalanche, right? For other networks as well. What's the situation with snapshots right now?
Well, each chain, each foundation has their own system of maybe getting this to work. So for example, Polygon is the fastest which will come to mind. They provide monthly snapshots.
Yeah.
They'll probably
but still, if you install that snapshot, you might have to catch up a whole month.
I did actually.
Yeah.
So if I use a snapshot which is a month old, because of the heavy transaction load, it still takes 5 days to catch up, a month of data.
Right.
Which is not sustainable in the longer term.
Yes, exactly. So maybe we need to work with the chains. I think this is an opportunity for companies like Ankr and Millennium Club is more people, if they host snapshots, it can be an amazing community service because helps all the full nodes get back at block height.
Exactly. So Fantom has actually a multitude of solutions for that aspect. Mm-hmm. So one is which they are coming up with, and it will be called Quick Sync. So of course, you'll be able to sync to the current block height, and the previous data will be synced a little slower, but you will be able to validate immediately, or much faster than previous.
Right. So in that case, the most recent blocks are synced first, and
right.
kind of backfill the back.
Yeah. So you have checkpoints in middle, and you just store state of those checkpoints, and the previous data keeps on syncing, and then you just the blockchain validates it over time.
Yeah. Now I know. I think what's really fascinating is we've seen incredible growth on the Fantom network, especially recently. Adoption is skyrocketing, all that. you guys are, I think like the stability of the network often has a lot to do with that. So what are some things that you've seen in just like maybe Fantom compared to other chains? We don't have to call anyone else out.
Of course.
But like, what are some things that make Fantom unique compared to other chains?
I think the biggest aspect is people just rely on the validated nodes. They think if the nodes are not performing well, the network will slow down. That's not at all what happens. The problem are the full nodes. Because they are not incentivized, the full nodes are acting at very low capacity, are very low hardware, so they can't handle the transaction load which users are facing. So as a validator, the node can create blocks, but if a user is trying to interact with a DeFi platform, their request goes to a full node. The full node, if it can't accept that request in a timely manner, user will just say, oh, this blockchain is so slow, I'll just shift to some other chain. They don't realize the blockchain is the fastest, but it's the RPC server which was failing.
That's right. The RP, that's a really, really important thing because the network slowness is really on the RPC, the full
Exactly. That is why the foundations contacted Millennium Club to get those RPC servers fixed.
Yeah. Right. So basically what that means, if we can get, like, I think as a community, right, like we can actually, and one thing we've seen is like, as more nodes have been added to the aggregators, like Ankr acquired Fantom tools from Casper Nice, which has been an amazing tool. And we've seen that kind of take the majority traffic on the network, right? But as more nodes have been added, it's been able to scale faster and faster, which has ultimately, there's a correlation between like the usage and the price of Fantom as well, which is really interesting.
That's just simply demand and supply. I can't explain economics to everyone. We all know, like the two phrases this conference has, Fantom bomb!
Right. But we're saying that, like good RPCs, good full nodes can help really improve adoption. So I think we have an interesting, just to pause for a second, we have kind of this interesting thing. So really anyone in the community can start running a full node. There's resources out there. If you don't know how to program or develop, you can do that, which is awesome. And now with Ankr Protocol, there's incentives now. We just announced today that we're incentivizing node operators with up to 10 million.
10 million US dollars, people, please.
Yes. So that's a huge announcement. We want to get more node providers, and I think there's other opportunities, maybe with the foundation and grants that Fantom Foundation has to get even more than that as well. But getting those nodes onto the platform, adding them, sharing the idle compute, with the network allows the network to grow. It allows projects to use the RPC as a service, and it potentially, ultimately, adoption can help the token itself grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that has been the concept of Millennium Club DAO since day one. So, as the saying goes, build it and they shall come.
Yes. So we've seen amazing, results around that. So we've been working on kind of, I think something here is that, a lot of the foundations have these public RPCs, like public networks, but they're often rate limited or whatever. One thing we're doing with Ankr is we're trying to use our own protocol to build effectively like a more or less unmetered public RPC. So we've been working on that. We have several. I'll put some on the screen here. You guys are all free to try these out. We want you to beat them up. Ultimately, we're working on adding more nodes to these so we can effectively scale them indefinitely, which, I'm working right now on getting servers, to the community. We're building a custom server at Ankr specifically for blockchain, which is really exciting. And let me talk about that for a second. I think like one thing is if you go out to like DigitalOcean or AWS right now, there really isn't a VPS or any bare metal out there that is effectively made for blockchain, right? And so that's something we're trying to solve right now too. And I think we have done that. So let's talk about like this public RPC and like maybe the value of that. So what the public RPC is it's essentially an endpoint to the full nodes, right?
Right.
An endpoint to that load balancer that's distributing traffic across the full nodes. And so, how have you seen, like, what's your opinion on kind of public RPCs and where that's going?
Public RPCs till now were not really incentivized, as we said before.
Yeah.
So not much focus was given there, as everyone wanted to use it, but no one wanted to provide it.
Yeah. Right.
So now, because of folks like
Yeah.
Josh and Ankr and foundations who are realizing that the real bottleneck is not the validators, but the RPC servers, these things are getting more traction and more importance is being given. So now the foundations are more aware that, okay, this is a loophole or this is a problem that we need to fix if we are ready to onboard the next set of future users.
Right.
So if Ankr is entering that space and providing this service to them, they'll gobble you up. I mean,
Yeah.
we will be asking you for more time, and
I know there's actually a project here that is sending over 300 million requests per day at the RPC right now. So, and it's handling it
Amazing.
really well, right? And then we have Ethereum, that's I think one of the first public RPCs that's unmetered too. So we'll see how that works out there in the market too. So tell us how we can, someone can get involved in Millennium Club. We have your website and your Twitter up there, but you guys primarily are active on Discord.
Discord, yeah. So one thing I learned from the Fantom ecosystem sorry, don't use Telegram. It's just not as user-friendly as Discord.
Right.
It may look easy, but the trade-off is huge. Imagine missing out on some of the best opportunities just because you were too lazy to join Discord.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. That's exactly what is happening in this space. Everyone tries to enter new projects and, they join the Telegram groups. They keep scrolling and reading. Half an hour later, they're like, okay, now we're all caught up. And then someone tells them, oh, there's something interesting on Discord. They're like, no, we've had enough. We've read and, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. So they just skip the Discord part. What they don't understand, the true development which is being done, is mostly now on Discord. All the major communities are now being shifted to Discord. Like we have all the chains I validate on are on Discord. I don't go regularly on Telegram. So once you join those groups, you will really understand the people who are interacting with those blockchains. When you meet them, you understand what the blockchain and community is all about. That's what truly opens doors. You can't just expect to run nodes and be like, okay, I'll be called to the next Fantom blockchain conference and on the stage.
Right. I know you were showing me earlier your list. How many Discords are you on now?
I can't count. Right.
More than 100?
But I got Discord Nitro, so maybe 180, 170.
Wow. So one of the things we've seen at Ankr too is like Telegram. We started with Telegram. I think most crypto projects were working on Telegram early on, and we still use it a lot, right? We still have an active community. We do a lot of deals, which is a whole nother topic. But one of the issues with Telegram is like, you can't really verify someone's identity. There's like no way to do that.
Exactly.
So we can't DM anyone because
so many scams on Telegram.
There's so many scams.
Like it's there on Discord as well, but Telegram is like 10x.
Yeah. So I think the moral of the story is like, especially if you're watching this stream today, get involved in the Discords and like the Fantom communities Discord, Millennium DAOs. You can join the Ankr Discord as well. And reach out to people. So one of the things about Discord is like every avatar kind of has your role in the project, right?
Exactly.
And it's verifiable. Like if you
can attach your social media profile so that people can authenticate. Okay, they're not just here on Discord. They have some other social profiles with histories.
Yeah.
So on Discord, what I have seen when you try to interact in these spaces, those are the real contacts which last longer. On Telegram, it's all a fleeting, long conversation. Once the messages go up, they stay up. On Discord, you have channels for specific topics. So when you join those channels, you have specific areas of your interest where you interact with. So for example, let's say you want to run a full node and you have zero clue. Like you don't know what Ubuntu is. You were probably looking to Google sudo soon like I did at one point. You can join our Discord on Millennium Club, ask questions. We have channels for each network separately made. We have folks who will answer and help you out because they want to, not because they are getting paid to. That's the community we have built from scratch. Someone helped me at one point when I had zero idea about all of this. Yep. So that's the thing which we are carrying forward. That's the tradition which we take forward. We have new members asking questions, wanting to join, and we want to push them and empower them to take benefit of the blockchain space and the future.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, working at a company that has a token, right? Lots of people are always reaching out, DMing me, asking questions and whatever. But I think as a retail investor, like a lot of retail investors should be getting involved in the Discords, right? Trying to, figure out what can they do? Can they run a full node? Like there's so many opportunities by taking that extra step and, getting involved.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think we have a few minutes left here. Let's transition into Q&A. You've been asking like really tough questions every single presentation. So I want you to ask me some tough questions. So what do you got for me? And then we'll open up to the community.
Firstly, I think the most curious part which I am
Yeah.
about is the bare metal services you guys are starting.
Yeah.
That's not just my passion. Like I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, so I'm a pretty big hardware buff. I, grew up like making PCs and hacking routers and installing like DDWRT, and I spent 7 years working in infrastructure as a service. And I think, I've helped build networks for Roblox and Cloudflare and all that too. And I think there's a big opportunity to build effectively like a made for blockchain server and to offer that to the community. It's high performing, but really the key is getting these servers in like every major country. Because like right now, latency can be really high depending on where you're at in the world. So that's one thing I'm very passionate about is doing that. We're very close on announcing that soon. It's pretty ridiculous the performance you get on it, and we're shipping them to like 200 data centers. So Millennium Club can get some of them first, but yeah,
I would want more than some.
yeah, it's awesome. And honestly, the pricing is actually lower than AWS if you average it out. So it's amazing. So that's coming soon. That'll be available through Ankr and to our node providers, and we can use the grants to purchase those and all that. So that's exciting. Yeah.
That's an essential service. I mean, that's
Yes.
literally an essential service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll rent them out to our users too. If you need a private RPC, we can do that as well. But we'll have that hardware available soon. So, what else you got for me?
I think I'll let the community ask the hard ones. If anyone is sour over my questions, now's your chance.
I think we got a couple mics in the space right over here.
Anyone? Maybe I should just go down and ask them.
Gentleman here.
I'm just curious about your made for blockchain server. Are you using custom hardware, or is it just a configuration or a VPS running on off-the-shelf parts? And there's a second part, but first, can you answer this one?
Yeah, so in order to decrease the cost to the community, we are going to use like readily available parts that effectively anyone you could go build it yourself too. But I think one of the things is like Ankr wants to share that with the community. Like we want if by incentivizing node providers, we want to make better node providers right on our platform, and so. It will use readily available parts. I will tell you it's NVMe based, so it's pretty insane like the speed that you get on it. And again, it's not for running like a virtual machine. Every server needs to run a single node.
So is it a custom VPS on top of?
VPS? No, we would use a Linux-based OS like a Ubuntu
Dedicated.
20.
Like no VPS, it's dedicated servers only.
Yeah, you run the node directly on the OS. There's
bare metal.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And is it optimized just for EVM-based blockchain, or somehow you have found the holy grail where
No,
any kind
you
of
can
blockchain?
you can use the same server to run like Ethereum nodes, Solana, any chain.
Actually, I would like to add on to that. So there are no EVM optimizations for any hardware, as far as I have seen.
No, not yet. We remember that EVM was really intended to be able to be run on like your home PC in the early days. So, there's nothing like that. Solana probably has the hardest requirements to hit from a server point of view.
Literally.
Yeah.
So I would be looking forward to FVM. That's when things can
me too.
really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the second question?
Yeah, this was, I don't know if I understood your answer. So how do you say that it's increasing optimization or speed for every different kind of blockchain?
Okay,
like
I'll
Polkadot or
help you out on
EVM
this.
based?
Yeah.
So I think the hardware optimization you are looking for is not really there yet. So we can't optimize hardware to the extent you think that EVM could or we could at this point. Right now, all we can optimize the hardware for is blockchain in a way that blockchain has certain aspects which are needed in a beefier manner, so to speak. For example, the hard disk, we would probably like to use RAID so that multiple hard disks can be combined into one, and maybe a backup as well. So the speed is, again, faster. So right now, our biggest concern for these blockchains is the fastest access speed for these hard disks for storage, basically. In a normal computer, a normal server these days, the hard disk or storage is the biggest bottleneck.
Yep.
Your CPU processor, for example, a single core is running at 3-4 gigahertz. So that's like 3 gigahertz is like, I can't even count the zeros. Like you start with
Right.
I know, just
yeah, so those many transactions or calculations per second, those many units of zeros and ones per second a single core can process. So all of that is all in the cache memory of the motherboard along with the CPU which is attached. If you really want to store it, then it comes to the hard disk.
Yep.
So till then it travels through the RAM. RAM is also super fast. It's not the bottleneck yet.
Yeah, it's mostly disputed, but I think we're out of time, but we'd love to answer more questions.
We got more. Yeah,
We
the
good?
last presentation was 15 minutes short. Or
You've got a few more minutes. It's fine. You can
Okay.
carry on,
Wonderful.
guys. If you've got
Perfect.
questions
we
from
don't
the
want to
audience,
go
go
the
for it.
stage. We don't want to go.
All right, what other questions do we have?
Nice.
You guys need a TV show. Seriously, this has been brilliant.
That's a great, maybe we'll start a video cast or something.
We should.
All right, sir.
So I'm pretty new to all this, all these nodes and stuff, but I have a question. If you have a higher quality computer and you're running a node, would you make per se more money with a higher quality computer with better parts, or would you make the same if you had a mid-tier computer?
An Ankr protocol, you would absolutely make more money with a higher server, a higher performing server, because you can serve more traffic. So we haven't publicized yet how we're doing this, but I can tell you that with our servers that we're going to be building, it is definitely the best way to earn.
I have a counter question to that. If you're asking that, are you asking for a validator or a full node?
Either. I'm pretty new, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
the guy who joined Millennium Lab. He's the one who's learning the New
Love
Testament.
it. Okay, so validator it really doesn't matter. Like, right?
Exactly.
As long as the validator is running, it's
Exactly.
fine. You can use whatever meets the minimum requirements, but with the full nodes, you definitely want the performance.
So let's think of it this way. If you're creating a validator node, the main issue or the reason which you are doing that is for creating blocks. So you'll have the transaction load when the blocks are needed to be created by your node. So for example, if the blockchain is having an average user base and average transaction count, you know what the expectation is. So you'll plan the hardware accordingly. So you know what you are earning. If your hardware underperforms, your earnings will be lower than the expectations, but you will never go above the expectations. In a full node, you are actually replying to requests from DeFi projects or third party who are actually using the blockchain. So people who are using the blockchain will need to access historical data, will need to access all sorts of data which we can't imagine at this point. When these number of requests are larger than what your hardware can maybe accommodate, then your earnings are limited. Because then if you're running a full node, you are being paid as per the requests you are serving. On a validator node, it's on the blocks you are creating.
Right.
I hope that helps.
Thank you.
I think Kevin has a question.
Yeah, Kevin does have a question. I'll actually ask one to each of you just about what you have spoken today. So first, when you mentioned the expansion of your RPC nodes across the world and the fact that you want to reduce latency, did you have any target countries in mind, any target areas that you want to open up first?
Yes, so I know Australia has really high latency right now. That's high on our list. South America, we're seeing growing a lot, but the goal is really to be in all major countries, So the tricky thing with latency is that just being local to the country doesn't always guarantee that you'll have low latency because of how internet routing works. So for example, we saw a use case in northern Sydney, Australia, where that neighborhood was connecting up through Hong Kong to the server that was in downtown Sydney, right? And so we have to look at really the advanced routing tables on all of that to figure out where to place servers, but we are working on that extensively right now to make sure that the goal really is to be able to have the nodes all be available to 90% of the world's population in less than 30 milliseconds.
Of course,
Yeah.
thanks.
That gets a very important aspect actually which you brought up. The importance of that is gaining every day because the NFT gaming space is the biggest gainer in the current industry.
Right, when I asked the question, I was also wondering if you were looking into user statistics by different countries, right? Because a country that has more users obviously would be more well-suited towards having lower latencies. Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. that all that information is about to be public on Ankr, like for our public RPCs, like what countries are the largest users. I see some really interesting call outs on certain countries, like Vietnam has a huge crypto community. I think they're using more requests to Fantom than Canada was, so
Yeah.
which was amazing. Yeah,
Truly.
yeah.
Excellent, thanks. And for you, Devesh, how are you so cool all the time, man?
It's a side effect of being at Fantom conference.
Woohoo! That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So but for the latency, I need to add a certain aspect also for the NFT gaming. This is what I saw in my own experience. So when there's a game being worked upon called Minutes to Midnight, it's being made by BombSwap. Of course, since I'm involved with their team, they use my private server. So before they were using my server, so the game involved a deadline. When the timer reaches the deadline, the pot is won by the last person who buys that ticket. So what happened was everyone wanted to buy the ticket at the last second. At that point, the RPC servers were the most important. So I had to stop providing folks there with my RPCs because they were getting an undue advantage. So, that's when the latency issues came forward and we realized how much these things mattered. Because there were folks, when they stopped using my server, they were very sour. They were like, we pressed the button.
Right. Well, I think what's important to say here is that every other industry that does a lot on the internet and on the web has this problem of getting like servers set up in all these different countries, right? Like Facebook now is building undersea cables to connect all their data centers because they can't get the performance out of the public internet, right? And it's like really, we're still very early in just Web3 and the broader crypto ecosystem. So, from my perspective, I want to be able to pioneer that with Ankr is to build like a global, like the most or the lowest latency network. And I think by January we'll have everything live with the custom servers. So very exciting on that. And we're happy for you guys to try it out. It'll be available on our public RPCs, and you'll see that latency reflected very quickly there.
Of course, look forward to it. I mean, it's the way you say that, it makes it seem like you'll have optic fiber cables running between your servers and other people's nodes at some point.
Yeah, we actually already do. We have a subsea cable across the Pacific Ocean right now. But like I said, this isn't new. Like it's new for crypto and blockchains, but in other spaces, very common. Yeah.
And Devesh, one last thing. Could you tell us more about your DAO and how it works? What kind of decisions come across your table that the DAO has to vote on?
Wow, sure. I mean, I didn't want to put the spotlight on like my DAO much here, but sure, like you asked. So my DAO is mainly a Discord server. We don't have a token. We don't have any governance token or any incentivization for folks to join or be active there.
Right.
We just provide them with one single dream, one single aspect, one single objective. Learn and find opportunities.
Right.
If you learn, you can identify opportunities, and if you identify, then only can you earn or maybe make something out of them. The problem here is most of the folks who try to get into the space, they try to directly find the opportunities. They're like, okay, if I do this, will I earn? They don't understand that the step one is to learn. They have to understand how it works. Why are they getting paid? Why are they thinking they'll get paid? They all just like, okay, will I earn? Will I earn? They focus on the money. If you focus on the product, if you focus on what you are doing, why you are doing it, that's when you'll succeed. That's when the barrier gets lifted. I have folks whom I introduced to Fantom at below 1 cent, and they were like, okay, I'll sell it 5 times or 10 times. They were just investors. They never researched what Fantom was building, what it was truly doing. I'm like, okay, do what you want. I'm running a node, stake if you want. Like, you make the decision, but read. So the biggest issue in today's industry, no one really reads the TNC, and I blame Netflix for that.
That's excellent to hear. Perhaps we can talk about the tokenization of your DAO at some point with something like a learn-to-earn system.
Sure. We are very open to the community. So the most time I spend these days is with the newer Fantom ecosystem projects. So, for example, the latest NFT game, which the Millennium Club DAO has funded, actually, is Fantom On. So it's led by a wonderful, brilliant team who are working day and night. One of them was actually working as a landscaper previously, you know. So when they pitched the idea to me, they were already working on it. They were building the product to 20, 25%. And I'm like, I loved it. The idea, I ate it up. So that's the kind of things I face on a daily basis. I have new projects who are trying to move to Fantom, who are trying to migrate to Fantom. We have a custodial platform in Russia by the name of Midas.investments. So like I'm literally on talks with them, and they'll be launching on Fantom any day now.
Right.
I had been trying to get them for a year, you know, so but you show them the way, and they are the ones who follow. So they took the initiative, and I think it's up to everyone here to go read about the projects, read about Fantom, read about Ankr, what people are building. Once you know what they are building, you will know if you want to buy it or not.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do talk. I do have some ideas for how we can contribute to your DAO.
Love it. Join my Discord. You're already there.
That I'm not a big fan of Discord, but okay. Thanks.